The following is an EHC media production.
Hi everyone, Ebeza here, and just want to let you know about my two YouTube channels that you might like. First, I have a WWE related channel. I play WWE games, I talk about WWE, the real product and all that sort of stuff. And the other channel, I just play a wider variety of games. The links are in the description of this video, so please head on over and check me out. Thanks very much.
The following program contains scenes of violence. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the RWT podcast. Why, hello there, RWT family. My name is Emir Blackbane Costello, and I would like to welcome you to the RWT podcast. Bum 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 bum. My goodness. Man, I'm telling you guys, it has been a crazy week. This is Tuesday, April the 10th. And this is late at night, okay? So we are several days removed from WrestleMania, the Raw after Mania, and then tonight, the first SmackDown after WrestleMania. And boy, there is a lot that has happened, and there's a lot to discuss about that. But that's not what will be happening today, because today I want to present to you a very special interview that I did with a guest, and I actually interviewed this person a few days before WrestleMania. And her name would be Shazza Mckenzie. Now, for those of you that follow Shazza and her career, she is an Australian independent wrestler who has made her rounds all over the indie circuit, including recently wrestling Tessa Blanchard for the Women's Championship, and including even having a match in WWE and NXT when she fought against her good buddy Emma. So she turned out to be a fantastic person and was kind enough to give me. I remember when I reached out to her for the interview, I said, 5 minutes of your time, please. She was so much more kind than that. She gave me a full interview, and boy, was it grand and amazing to speak with her. And so I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to the show today, so you can hear that. But before we get to that, I just want to remind everybody that this is season 2, man, of the RWT podcast. Yeah, been doing this for a little bit over a year now, something like that. And we got a lot of good shows. I'm trying to get all the old shows uploaded on our RWT YouTube channel. Please click on the link that should be in the description here. And well, actually, in all reality, this show is taking place on the RWT YouTube channel. So after you're done listening to this episode with Shazza Mckenzie, make sure you subscribe, okay? So you can hear, we got a lot of great interviews that are going to be happening in the weeks to come, and we got a lot of great shows on this channel, including the Major League Show, which is a New Japan review show, and Smack Talk, a review show about SmackDown every week, and those shows are hosted by Moses Marquez. And we also have WinXT. It's the best NXT review show on the market, hosted by Brian Green from the RWT Facebook group. And then there's a new podcast that's coming out very soon. It's going to be called The War on Raw. And we had a really cool host lined up for that, but unfortunately the timing wasn't right. So I'm going to be taking over hosting duties for that show, and it'll be debuting. And let me tell you a little bit about it. It's not going to be like a show necessarily to review Monday Night Raw, but instead of taking up an hour of your time or 30 minutes of your time, I'm going to keep this show to a solid 15 minutes or less. And it's just going to be taking whatever I thought was the most important thing that happened on Raw this week, or maybe some sort of story that's surrounding, a superstar of Raw, and just breaking that down, as opposed to reviewing an entire show and doing that whole like, well, if you missed Raw, this person fought that person, blah blah blah. I'm not super good at that kind of stuff. You know who's great at that stuff? Brian Green. You know who else is really good at it? Moses Marquez. So check out their shows, man. They'll also be here on the RWT YouTube channel. But as far as me, I'm pretty good at taking stories, breaking them down, giving some opinions, looking at it from different angles. And of course, I want to hear from all of you guys. So make sure after you listen to any of these shows, comment on them. Let these hosts know if they're doing a good job or not, And if you have questions or you want to get in on the action, reach out, man. We love to interview anybody all the time. Before I started interviewing some really cool industry professionals and stuff like that, I made this this channel and these shows what they were by interviewing just everyday common wrestling fans, including the over 3,000 members that we have on the RWT Facebook page, where we just talk about wrestling all the time. So if you're not a part of that group, just go to your browser on Facebook, type in RWT, and we'll get you added. It's a fun group. There's not a lot of rules in it. I mean, the only real rule is just be respectful. That's it. I've been a part of other wrestling Facebook groups where the admins are turning off commenting and taking down your story if somebody else posted it, hours earlier or something like that. It just never got any of that stuff, man. Our group is fun, interactive, and we all get along and just want to talk about wrestling 24/7. And we have people in our group from the United States, all across the United States, and Africa and Europe, and just really all over the world. So no matter what time you jump on the page, guaranteed there's somebody there talking wrestling. Anyways, now that I've plugged everything to complete death, how about we take a quick break, and then coming up immediately after the break, enjoy my interview with Shazza Mckenzie. I'm Emir Blackbane Costello, and I will catch you after the break.
Hey guys, this is Brian Green here, your host of WinXT, your weekly insight into the who, what, when, where, why, how, what happened on NXT, and that's a pretty clever name, huh? I think I outdid myself with that one. I welcome your feedback so we can chat all the good, bad, and ugly coming out of Full Sail University, and how this important brand and everything surrounding it can change the future of wrestling forever, brother. Check out new episodes every Thursday on the RWT page, and I hope to see you later, dudes.
What's going on, RWT family? This is your host of Smack Talk, Moses Marquez, and I'll be coming at you each and every Wednesday with a new episode of Smack Talk, where I give my review and recap of SmackDown Live. I am here for you, my listeners. So if you have any questions for me that you want me to answer on the show, please feel free to message me following SmackDown Live, and I will do the best I can to get your questions answered. This has been your host of Smack Talk, Moses Marquez, and we'll see you around the bend, boys and girls. Hope to catch you on Wednesday.
Can't just say, hey, I'm a wrestler. There has to be a lot of work involved and a lot of training.
This is really what I should be doing.
He is known as Big Thing.
Big Thing? It should be Big Fat Thing!
I don't know how this loser got a shot with me. I'm the champ.
It's all over for you.
I'm gonna make you sorry you ever stepped in the ring.
Join two regular guys as they try to break into big-time professional wrestling. Rent or buy this hilarious comedy at FloridaBushLeagueWrestling.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the RWT podcast. And as promised, I have on the line with me, Shazza Mckenzie. How you doing, Shazza?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's still Easter here in California. It's about 10 o'clock at night, and I had a pretty good day. And the best part of the day, of course, is that I knew I'd get a chance to sit here and oh my God, interview you. And so, how was your day? It's Monday over there in Australia, right?
It's Monday here, so it's like still like we have like a public holiday on the Friday and the Monday as well, so it's like a really long weekend where like things are kind of closed and no one's really doing anything in life. So I'm currently at training, because I was like, well, there's a day of nothing, let's just go to the ring and roll around and stuff, since I have to go to America in like 2 days and be a wrestler. I thought I should probably make sure I know how to wrestle. So did that with my day, but then I have to pack and stuff today as well. So my Easter weekend is like half like relax and then half me going, oh wait, I'm going away for 3 weeks, I need to like organize my life. So it's good but bad.
I can't. Okay, here's the thing about me. I am. Well, this show that we're doing will come out the week after WrestleMania.
Okay.
But I'm going to WrestleMania this weekend. Okay. And
yes. Me too.
You're going to be there. You're going to be in the house.
Hell yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm not going to go all the way overseas and not go to bloody WrestleMania. Hell yeah. Of course I'm going.
Well, because there's a lot of independent shows that take place that week, and I figured maybe you were working,
Oh, I'm working as well. But, like, if I'm in New Orleans, I'm going to go to, like, it'd be crazy not to, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's
the idea of not actually going is just, that's insane. It's WrestleMania.
See, I never know. Okay, here's the thing. So, you're a wrestler. This is what you do. Your whole life revolves around this. So, I never really know how impressed a wrestler is by other people wrestling, because you do that as well,
I'm always impressed. I love wrestling. Like, I'm a fan of wrestling. Like, I watch wrestling, like, non-stop. Like, yesterday I was watching New Japan. Like, we're lucky because with New Japan pay-per-views and stuff, because I'm in Australia, there's only, like, an hour time difference, so they air at, like, reasonable times at, like, 5 or 6 p.m. on a Saturday or Friday or Sunday or whatever. So I can watch pretty much any New Japan show that happens on New Japan World. And then, like, I have the network. I have so many, like, subscriptions as well to, like, I have, like, High Spot subscription. I've got Shikaratopia. I've got Honor Club. I love wrestling. Like, I love watching wrestling as much as I love doing it. So, I mean, I probably, like, I'd rather be doing it, but, like, I can appreciate wrestling. And I'm a fan of wrestling, and I don't think the idea of, like, you get to a certain point where, so you get to a certain point where they are your peers. So I'm not, like, a fangirl of the wrestlers, but I'm a fangirl for wrestling, like, just in general. Like, I love wrestling, so I'll always, I love wrestling.
Okay.
Love watching it.
Okay, here's a couple things about, it makes total sense. Okay, just one quick thing, just because I don't know if this is going to make you jealous or not, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay.
Strong Style Evolved took place
Long
Beach, California a few days ago.
Yes, it sure did.
I live in Long Beach, California, so you can guess where I was when that show took place.
I can guess that you were there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, like, New Japan just did a, like, Australian tour back in February, so not that long. Was it February? Or was it? Yeah, it was February. And so they, like, did a couple of different cities around Australia, and they used the PWA ring, which is the company that I work for and train with and everything primarily. Like, that's my home school, essentially. They used our ring for their shows in Sydney, and so I got to do all the ring crew, and I got to, like, sit there, like, pretty much ringside, and act completely professional, but it was pretty, like, it was insane, like, just setting everything up and looking at this giant screen for New Japan and just being like, this is that's Okada just walking around, like, just chilling, whatever. Like, it was insane.
Yeah, man, you know what? It was a lot of fun. And listen, I can tell that you love wrestling because, okay, here's the thing about me. I'm just going to be honest with you, okay?
Okay.
I grew up a WWE guy, Okay, like to the point, like when the Monday Night Wars were happening with WWE and WCW, I couldn't watch WCW because, I mean, it's not like Vince McMahon was gonna know, but I would feel so guilty, like if I I couldn't do it, and so like now that I'm an adult, I realized I missed out on a lot of stuff by going. I just have to only watch WWE, and so now I'm starting to the past few years to like really get into independent wrestling and look at all the other companies because I'm realizing like, dude, looking at WWE is amazing, lifelong fan for sure, but also it's not like, okay, so these guys that go to WWE and you yourself, you were in WWE. It's like you get there and everything that made you great, everything that got you there, once you get there, they go, okay, you can't do any of that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, I
think if you're a good worker, you'll be able to adapt to any situation, and I think that's why I watch so much wrestling, is because I don't ever want to fall behind, if that, like, with where everyone's at and what's happening, especially because I live on the other side of the world, and like we wrestle here regularly, but we're very secluded from the main independent companies and the main like shows that everyone follows and watches. Like, it's not like the UK scene where everyone's wrestling 6 nights a week, or America where people are wrestling consistently all the time. Like, we're very disconnected from all of that, so I have to watch everything that I can watch, so make sure that even though I'm physically disconnected from all that, I'm not like losing I'm keeping up with what people are doing and making sure that I'm evolving as well as a wrestler, and I'm pushing myself further. And if I'm doing something and I see someone else is doing something well, then I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to make sure it's better than what that person's doing, and I'm going to keep growing as a performer and changing and evolving and getting better. Always got to get better, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so like
it does, absolutely.
If you get to WWE, like, if you're good enough at evolving and you've prepared yourself for that, then it shouldn't be an issue, and you should be able to find new ways to connect.
You know what? And there are some people who have done fantastic at that. You got your AJ Styles and Kevin Owens and some of these guys who they've made it, and they've made it work. But maybe you and I can agree on this, or maybe you feel differently. I just kind of feel like WWE used to be everybody's dream, and like more and more now, you got guys like Will Ospreay and maybe the original guy doing this was Sting. Guys who go like, I don't have any desire to go there. I'm like Kenny Omega is like, yeah, I'm good in New Japan. I'm doing stuff over here. Like all of a sudden, it's not the dream destination it used to be, because people realize they can't work how they want to work. They can't, because wrestling is such a beautiful art, and if you go there and you have a paintbrush in your hand, but then you have somebody over your shoulder telling you, how to stroke and where what you can and can't put on the canvas, no pun intended. And so it just I think for a lot of people it takes the fun out of it. But you went. What was your experience when you were in WWE?
For me, WWE is the goal, the dream, the be all and end all. But I also understand completely that that's not everyone's be all and end all, and I understand, especially with the way that the business is evolving, that there are other options. I think a lot of it for a while, it was seen as making it to WWE is the only way you can do this for a living and make a good living, and now guys are proving that wrong, that you can make a good living on the independents or in Japan or wherever it is. You can make a good living doing what you love, and I think that at the end of the day, the goal is always to make a living doing what you love, because there's that whole saying, if you love what you do, then you'll never work a day in your life. So I think that's the goal, but to me, WWE will always be the goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, because, I mean, sometimes, like going back to Will Ospreay, when I think, he kind of made it clear, like, he never wants to go to WWE, and I was just like, how could somebody feel like that? Like, how could you not want to be WWE champion,
Yeah, but like at the end of the day, he's making a very good living doing what he's doing, and I think it's probably different because I'm a female. I don't feel like there's as many options to make as good a living independently as some of the guys can. Like, I don't think there's any girls walking around making the young buck money independently. So that's why for me, I think it will always be WWE. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just want to be able to wrestle, and I want to be able to pay my bills with my wrestling, and I want to be able to travel the world and do what I love.
Speaking of traveling the world, I mean, you are everywhere, dude. Like, seriously, okay, so I'm like, okay, I love independent wrestling. I'm following people's careers. I'm learning more and more about the indie scene and stuff like that. And so I started looking at your matches and looking at, like, you go everywhere. You do all kinds of shows, whether it's wrestling or being kind enough to appear on a podcast. And you are a very, very hard worker. You're in several different companies, displaying your talents. Like, how do you do it all?
I'm exhausted all the time. It's great. I run on coffee. But like at the end of the day, like, because it's what I'm passionate about, it's like, yeah, it's hard work and it's exhausting, but it's what I want to do. So, and it's what makes me happiest. Like, so it doesn't feel like work. When I'm doing it, when I'm wrestling, when I'm training, like, that's like my happy place. Like, if I could just train all day, every day, like, I get really nervous when I'm actually wrestling, like, in front of a crowd. Like, once I'm out there, it's fine, but I get horrible, like, stage fright before I go out. So, like, if I could eliminate that part, that'd be great. And just have the adrenaline once I'm out there and the, like, excitement of learning new things, that'd be ideal. But I understand that the stage fright and, like, the butterflies and the, oh my gosh, this is going to be the worst thing ever, and what am I doing with my life moment before you walk through the curtain is probably all part of the experience. But yeah, I just, like, it's what I want to do, so I'll do whatever I have to do it. And, like, I've sacrificed a lot in my life. Like most people my age should be, like, married with 5 kids and have a giant house, but I'm just like, nope, gotta wrestle, like, gotta focus on that, gotta do whatever it is that gets me to wrestling and traveling the world and all that stuff. And it's finally kind of starting to pay off after many years.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. And here's the thing about you. I mean, and this is an understatement, but you are clearly no slouch in the ring, man. And one of my favorite matches of yours is with Tessa Blanchard. You wrestled.
Yes.
You wrestled her for the women's championship, and I'm telling you, dude, I was looking at that crowd. The entire crowd was chanting your name. Everybody was loving it, and then you did like a suicide dive. I mean, because here's the thing, okay? Sometimes, again, I grew up a WWE guy, so you can imagine how painful it was to sit through like divas wrestling and mud wrestling matches, and they had to pull each other's, like, who can pull the clothes off, like, all that stuff.
Yeah, yep, the brown panties
Match, right?
Classics.
Right.
Classics match.
But then in the last few years, it's like the women's revolution, and all of a sudden it's not about who's the prettiest, it's like, can you wrestle? And so I'm still getting acclimated to that.
Yeah.
So when I see you go and you dive through the ropes like nothing, like, Jesus Christ, man, like, where do you get the guts to do something like that?
Adrenaline, like, I would, once you're in front of the crowd, especially, like, that match with Tessa it was the first time we'd wrestled, and, like, there's people that you click with in the ring, and, like, I felt that we instantly were like, this works, like, we can feed off each other and we have a good motion and stuff. So it was just like, there was so much adrenaline, and I just did it. Plus practice, like, I practiced that many times before I ever did that in front of a show. I practice a lot. I train in wrestling at least twice a week, and I have for the past 10 years of my life, just constantly training and constantly trying to make sure that I know how to do, like, repetition, making sure you know how to do everything safely, takes a lot of fear out of it. Like, obviously things still can go wrong, but like, if you know that you can do something and you've done it 100 times successfully, then you can be a bit less scared running and diving and hoping that they're going to catch you and you're not going to just go headfirst into a chair or something, which I've seen happen. So.
Oh my goodness!
But,
Yeah. My favorite thing about the match was this. I mean, so a lot of my life revolves around wrestling because, like you, I love it. It's a passion. I'm not in the ring, obviously, but just being able to talk about it and all that kind of. So when I look at matches, I'm like everybody else in the IWC. I always think I know, and I looked at that match and I thought Tessa's got her family lineage and all that kind. I was like, there's no way that they're gonna let Shazza win, and so I was like, okay, Shazza's gonna put Tessa over, but then. When I started watching the match, dude, you wrestle with such passion. I was like, holy shit, she's gonna win. Like,
yeah, and like I felt that as well. Like in the ring, obviously, like wrestling is predetermined, and like I knew what was gonna happen at the end. But like I even felt that like during that match, like especially because the crowd was so far behind me, and I thought for sure that everyone would just be like, nah, whatever, like, obviously Tessa's going to win, but, like, it just, like, there was just that, an emotion and a feeling in that crowd and in that ring that night, and it was great, like, it's one of my favourite matches, and I get to wrestle her again in, like, a week or something, I don't know with time zones, a bit less than a week, next Saturday, oh my gosh, next Saturday.
So I'm going to be, Saturday, I'll probably be at I'm going to be at TakeOver. So I'm gonna miss the chance to see you perform. But you said something that stuck out to me just now, and I mean, it's an obvious fact of wrestling, but it's worth discussing. Yes, it's predetermined, but I got this question for you.
Yep.
People go into these matches, they already know who's going over. Yet
yes.
People go out there and allow themselves to be murdered in a wrestling match, all the while knowing they were never going to win the match or win the belt or whatever. Like, dude, what's the mentality behind that? That people just like chairs and tables and people are being set on fire, but they knew from the beginning, like, oh, this is all going to suck. Also, I'm not going to win, but here we go. Like, how do you do that?
I think because we're all essentially, to be a wrestler, you pretty much all of us would at some point have started as a fan of wrestling. So when I go into a match, obviously if I know I'm not going to win, but the idea is to make the crowd feel something, like feel the way that we felt when we were kids watching wrestling. Like, because like I can remember like being like 10 or whatever and like sitting there and like on the edge of my seat, like emotion and like crying and yelling and like, and you want to be able to like, and like that's such a good, like crying and yelling is usually not very good, but like it is such a like awesome feeling when you're watching wrestling and you're that invested. So the goal is to make the crowd invested, and it's like, and the challenge, it's also a challenge, like if they've never seen you before, to get them invested in you with no prior history and prior knowledge of who you are, being able to tell them a story from the time the bell rings to the time the bell rings again at the end, that a story that connects with them and they can feel that emotion even with zero backstory.
Okay, so the whole deal is you guys want the crowd to feel something. Now,
yeah.
Here's where the problem comes in at. Here's where the fans like get disconnected from the product is the guys in New York, as they call WWE, they go, listen, any reaction is a good reaction. And the people in the arena and the people on the internet go, let's just say, for example, Roman Reigns, who I think is a fantastic guy. I think pretty much everybody else in the world hates his guts for whatever reason. And so they yell and they scream and they're very angry. And they're like, we don't want to see this guy with a championship. We don't want to see this guy winning Royal Rumbles, blah, 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 blah. And then Vince McMahon goes, perfect, we got them on the hook. They're invested. Let's just keep making them win. Like, so you're in this world. What's the mentality behind people like saying, no, hey, listen, we're legitimately saying we don't want this wrestler to succeed, but just because he is getting a reaction from people, they continue to push him.
Well, yeah, if a reaction, any reaction is a good reaction. If you're making them feel something, then they're feeling something. And if they're legitimately feeling something, that's even better. But if you've got people legitimately do not like this person, then the worst thing you could do is take that person away, because then there goes that whole reaction that you could be getting. Whether it's a good reaction or a bad reaction, you want them to feel something, and they feel something. They feel an emotional connection to Roman, and that even if that emotional connection is that they do not want to see him, that's an emotional connection, and that's something that they've created and run with, and they've and there is still a whole other side of the crowd with the kids and stuff that do actually like him. There are people that are huge fans, and obviously he's still selling merchandise. He's still making them money, so there would be no reason for them to not use him in that capacity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it absolutely does. And if I'm being honest, my boys have a WWE room, and every time I walk past their door, I forget that there's a life-size cutout of Roman Reigns standing there, and he scares the shit out of me every time.
That would scare the crap out of me too.
Right?
Just walking around my house oh crap.
Exactly. Crowd reactions, though. So you became a wrestler, and maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like when people become a wrestler, I think maybe they want to be liked, they want to be well received by the crowd, but you have an understanding that in the business, it's about the reaction, whether it's positive or negative. So if you go into an arena to wrestle and everybody's booing you, does that make a difference to you? Do you feel sad inside, or is it just I got a reaction, so we're all good here?
I mean, it's as long as I get a reaction. The worst, the absolute biggest fear is to walk out to complete silence. That would make me sad. That would make me be oh, okay, going home now. See you guys. I've made a horrible mistake. I shouldn't be a wrestler. Bye. I would be that would be traumatizing. And I mean, it has happened, but walking out to a crowd, no reaction, not being able to figure out how to get one from that crowd, that's the nightmare as a wrestler. A good reaction or a bad reaction, as long as they feel something emotionally to what you're doing, then I think that's what wrestling's about. Other than obviously the athleticism and stuff, but I think that the emotion behind it is a lot of what connects with that. That's what connects with majority of the crowd, and that's what gets majority of the crowd tuning in week after week after week after week after week.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned as a kid having emotions evoked in yourself while you watched wrestling. So I got to know, who were you watching that was bringing out your emotions? Who did you see growing up that made you feel like I got to do that someday?
Okay, so my big reason why I was I'm going to be a wrestler was Trish Stratus, 100%, because I think back then in that time and age of people, we didn't see many women being portrayed as strong and confident and tough, and she had all that, but she also had that sex appeal, and she also had the feminism about her. She was still very feminine in everything that she did, which, as someone who I felt like I was a girly girl as a child, but now that I look back at it, I probably wasn't. But at the time, I thought I was super girly. But I wasn't at all. But so I connected with that because I was like, oh, look, she's like a girl, but she's tough and she's tough as nails, and I just want to this is everything to me. She was as soon as I saw Trish, it was all over.
That's fantastic. And so, at what age did you start training? Because I know for a lot of wrestlers, it comes down to this. Like maybe your family thinks, listen, you got to finish high school, you got to go to college, and then at some point you got to break the news to your family, like, yeah, I'm not doing any of that. I'm gonna take a chance here. Like, when did you know? How did you break it to your parents or whoever was important to you, and how did it all turn out?
So originally, when I was about, I think I must have been 16, so I dropped out of high school with the full intention of getting a job, saving up money, and then going to Canada and training at Lance Storm School. Turns out that's really expensive, and once I got a job and had money, I was very bad at saving it because I was a teenager.
Right.
But I did still drop out of school with that intention. And then eventually I ended up saving enough money for a training school that I found locally. So I never made it to Lance Storms, but that was my original plan when I left school. I was like, Mom and Dad, I'm getting a job and I'm moving to Canada. It's happening. It didn't happen. But so I found a school. I ended up, I left school when I was like 16, and then I started training when I was 19. So it took a few years for me to like find the money and figure it out. And my parents were not okay with me being a wrestler. Like growing up, they wouldn't let me do any sort of martial arts or like karate or anything like that. And I always really wanted to do it, but they just, I don't know, they were very against anything sort of violent. So I had to wait till I was at least old enough to get myself to and from training and pay for everything myself. And it was very expensive training, and I now realize that I was wildly ripped off when I started training, but that's hindsight, and we'll deal with that later. I don't get ripped off anymore. But yeah, so when I was 19, I started training, and then about a year later, I started having matches, and that was about 10 years ago now, and now I'm old.
Wait, you're old. So you're 30 years old.
I'm 29.
You're 29, and you think, okay, so you're talking to him. I'm 32 years old, okay? Now, if I'm not old, you're not old, young lady.
Okay, cool. We're fine.
So,
we're young. We're spring chickens.
Exactly. But if I'm honest, my legs feel old.
Everything feels old.
Yeah, man.
Broken. No.
It happens when you get older. I mean, look at you. I mean, you're in magnificent shape physically, but I can only imagine taking the bumps and everything like that. Like a lot of people can recall the first bump they ever took and what went through their mind. Like when you hit that mat for the first time, what did you think?
I remember just being really scared of the action of falling backwards. Like I remember it taking me ages to figure out like how to mentally throw myself into the ground. Like it was such a mental struggle to figure out that. But then I do specifically remember the next day, like, not being able to move. I remember that. I remember that being, like, what have I done? This was a horrible mistake, and oh my God.
Yeah, man, that's the tough part. And you hear that story everywhere. People, they come off the ropes the first time, and they're blown up, and they hit the mat, and they're like, oh, this was a bad idea.
Yeah, maybe I should just go back to watching this. This hurts.
Yeah, so you obviously made it through all that, and then at some point you got the opportunity to go to WWE. How did that all come to play?
So with the opportunity with WWE, it was actually the most insane 24 hours of my life, because I pretty much got the call the day before at 3 p.m. saying that they wanted me at the show the next day at 1 p.m.
Wow.
So, which was completely out of the blue for me. Like, no comprehension that I was anywhere in anyone's thoughts or anything like that at all. I just happened to be over in Florida at the time, and I guess they knew that I was over in Florida at the time, and they were like, yep, please come down, and we'll go from there. And then, yeah, it was just a complete, like, it's like a blur. Because, like, the whole time from the moment they said, yep, tomorrow at 1 p.m. is just a giant blur in my life. Where, like, everything was just kind of happening around me, and I was just kind of there, if that makes sense. Like, everyone was just doing things. People were just like, yep, do this, okay, yep, I'll do that, yep, put my makeup on, okay, yep, I've got to wear a dress, okay, yep, I can do that, okay, I'm here, okay, this person, I need to say hello, yep. Like, it was all just happening. But yeah, it was it was cool because at the time, Billy Kay and Peyton Royce had only been over there for a couple of months, and they actually started the same school as me, so we're actually really good friends, and so it was nice to have, like, I had them backstage, so I didn't feel like I didn't know anyone, and then I had Emma Sotenil, who I had, like, actually had her last match before she signed her contract and moved to America. We had a match in Melbourne in Australia, which was like her farewell match to the Independents. So now we have to have another match now that she's back on the Independents, obviously.
Right.
Because, like, the whole cycle needs to be finished. Like, I had her match when she was before WWE and sent her off, and then we had a match in WWE, and then we're going to have a match after WWE. Obviously, because that's how it all works.
Yep, the trilogy.
But yeah, exactly. The story needs to end. I mean, we had other matches before any of that happened, where we're just in, like, wrestling, because we're both Australian and there's not that many Australian wrestlers that are female. So we obviously have wrestled a few times, but she lived in Canada for a while, so didn't see her much there. Now, obviously, she lives in the US, but hopefully, I think she's coming down to Australia in June or July, so hopefully I'll get to catch up with her then and stuff. But yeah, it was really like a blur, like a whirlwind of everything just happening around me, and I was just like, okay, I'm just going with whatever anyone says, whatever, like, I'm just happy, like, I was just, what is happening right now, like, I couldn't comprehend it.
So in your time there, because it's kind of like, I mean, you grew up watching the show and everything like that, and then obviously at a certain point, you became a wrestler and you got to learn all the mechanics and all the things that typically happen that the regular everyday fan wouldn't know about. And then you find yourself in WWE. What would you say was the thing that was most surprising to you while you were there?
Gosh, how big Rhino was. Like, I know there was lots of things, but seriously, Rhino is the biggest human I've ever seen in my life. Like, I tried to walk down, like, a hallway, and he was walking, like, towards me, and I was like, I don't know how we're both going to be able to walk down this hallway, because you were just that thick. Like, it was insane. But yeah, like, I guess, like, just that everyone was, like, I don't know, I guess you feel like you'd expect people that once they get to a certain level of success that they would have, I don't know, some sort of ego about themselves, and the fact that everyone was just so nice, like, and so welcoming. They didn't make me feel like I was an outsider or a weirdo, like, why was I there? Like, it was, no one was like, who's this person? Like, it was just like, oh, hey, like, nice to meet you, let's have a chat about, like, pizza. I don't know, like, it was just, everyone was very down to earth, and I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I know they have
and Rhino. And Rhino being giant.
He used to be smaller, man, back in the day, ECW and stuff like that, but yeah, he's definitely gotten thick since he came back this last run.
Very thick. I was very shocked.
Yeah, I know they got this rule that everybody's supposed to know, like, when you walk in to WWE, you need to shake hands and introduce yourself to everybody. If you walk in and you don't speak to everybody, like, you get a lot of heat in that locker room.
Yeah, well, that's just a general, that's everywhere in wrestling, that everyone should be taught that. If anyone's listening to this that is, like, learning to be a wrestler and hasn't been taught that you shake everyone's hand when you walk in to a venue or into a show or whatever, I'm telling you now, do that. Please. It's the number one rule.
And then here's another good rule to remember. It's like you kind of look like a little bit of a jerk if you wrestle your match and then you leave. Like I think they appreciate. I think it's appreciated if you stay and watch other people's matches too, because you may be able to learn something, or those people in the ring want to feel supported too, right?
Oh yeah, I like every show I'm on. I watch as much of the show that I can. Like if there's a monitor backstage, I'm watching as much as I can before my match, as much as I can after my match. Like I said, I love wrestling, so I'm still a fan of watching wrestling. So I'll always watch everything that's going on around me. Plus, you want to make sure that you're not doing the same thing as the person that just wrestled directly before you, because otherwise you look silly.
I never really thought about that. Like how you have to kind of like watch the people who came on before you, so you don't put on the same kind of match as them. That's
because it just looks silly. The crowd's gonna be like, "Hey, I just saw this. I don't want to see this again." I know what happens.
Yeah, that's true. And so, one of the things that you talked about was how crazy it was to you that everybody was so humble, in spite of the fact that the level of success that they had achieved. And I kind of think that about you. Like, do you realize how famous you are? Like,
I mean, no, I'm not famous.
You're not okay.
I'm just a regular person.
Have you looked on YouTube? Like, literally, this is how you know you're famous. Okay, okay, literally. If you look up your name on YouTube, there are people who have created videos for the WWE 2K video game. It's like they literally show step by step. If you want to create Shazza Mckenzie, you got to use these eyes. You got to use this face.
I want to know how to create me.
You're on the
That's interesting.
Yeah. And one of the people who created you on the game, of course, they put the strap on you. So it's kind of like. Now, yeah, to be expected. I wasn't surprised in the least bit. But it's that thing where it's like, wow, this person's very humble and everything like that. And I think it's a fantastic characteristic because, I won't disrespect anybody by naming any names, but there are a lot of people in the industry who enjoy the fandom. They enjoy the money. As far as like people coming to see them and people following them on social media. But if you meet them in public, don't you dare take a picture of them. Don't even approach them. They will be like very angry by that. Like, what's up with those people?
I don't like. I'm very bad at going out for merch because I get very like overwhelmed by the amount of people and like the yelling and the hey, buy my stuff, hey, yeah. Like I find that all a lot of overwhelmingness, but I love meeting people and talking to people, and like there's lots of people that like I guess like regularly tweet me and like send me messages and stuff that I always make sure that like if I'm at a show and I know that they're there, I'll make sure that I go out and see them and stuff. Like I would never be rude to anyone that approached me in public or anything like that. I'd also be very confused if anyone approached me in public, which has happened a few times, and I've just been like, I guess I am Shazza Mckenzie, but like, how do you know who I am? What? Like, but I guess that's who I am. But yeah, so I couldn't imagine being rude. But I guess maybe if I was like super duper famous, like I was like, I don't know, stone cold, and like everywhere I went everyone was like hey, I'd probably be like, hey, go away.
Yeah, give me some space.
Yeah, like let's chill, guys.
So you've accomplished a lot, and you have a fantastic catalog of matches, and you're everywhere, and you're doing everything.
Trying to be everywhere,
right? You got a lot of good dates coming up. Like what is there still left for you to achieve? Like what's left on your list? Like, there's this few things I want to do. I want to end up back in these places. Like what's the future hold for Shazza Mckenzie?
For me, like I want to move. I need to move overseas. Is what I should say. I don't want to move overseas. I need to move overseas because there's no possible way of making a living wrestling in Australia. So I need to be based out of another country where I can make a living out of it. So that to me is the goal, is to either move. Well, the ultimate goal would be to move to the US, but you guys make it quite hard to just up and move to your country and have a lot of immigration rules. But once I figure out a way around that legally, that would be the ultimate goal. Or even like going over to England, that's a bit easier to go to, like legal wise, to move there, being part of the Commonwealth and stuff. So that's my next sort of plan, is at the end of this year I want to try and move my whole entire life to another country, ideally, and be able to just do this 100% full time, nothing else, just wrestle. Because it's just not financially remotely applicable in Australia. Like there's not enough wrestling. The cost of living is like quadruple the cost of living in like America. So it's just not possible. So that for me is the goal, is to do this for a living, whether it be with WWE or independently, just to do this for a living.
You know, I think if you find your way to America, and trust me, as a guy who lives here, and the situation with the president and blah blah blah, and it's all kind of walls they're trying to build. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a little bit difficult.
Yes.
But I mean, perhaps I can't speak for the president. I can only speak for myself and wrestling fans everywhere. Come on down, man. We welcome you.
Yeah, I know. I know I'd be welcomed by the wrestling community. Just need to figure out the immigration community first.
Okay, well, let's. I just want to wrap up by doing this.
Yes.
I spoke to you before we started doing this interview, and I told you about a little thing that we have on our page that's called the RWT promo challenge. Okay, and this was started by me. I think one day I just thought to myself, we should be cutting promos, and so myself and some of the other guys on the page have taken the liberty to cut promos on other people on the page, just to see what their mic skills are like, and we get into it. We're passionate, and it's worked out great. Now, I got a buddy. His name is Mike Ebeza, okay? Mike, as we call him, and he does Ring Psychology with me, which is a podcast where before every WWE pay-per-view, we give our predictions. And he's got his Ebeza Plays Games channel on YouTube, and this guy, he's a big fan. In fact, because of him, I'm going to be able to go to WrestleMania this weekend.
That's nice.
Yeah, he's a great guy, but here's the thing: he's a little misguided, in my opinion, because he has it in his head that he should be able to be with Emma, and or Tenille, as she's gone by now, and he knows that you know her, and he's thinking maybe you're gonna put in a good word for him and help him wiggle his way in there, and I'm thinking maybe you need to pick up the mic and cut a promo and explain to this guy, does he deserve a chance with Emma? So how about that? Shazza Mckenzie, it's time for you to take the RWT promo challenge.
Throughout history, wrestling fans everywhere have had the pleasure of witnessing the moment a star was born.
Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass.
Brett made a very, very selfish decision. Brett's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. Brett screwed Brett. I have no sympathy whatsoever.
I did it for The Rock. I did it for the people. I did it. Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty.
But now, it's your turn to become the star. It's your turn to let your voice be heard.
I don't hate you, John. I don't even dislike you. I do like you. I like you a hell of a lot more than I like most people in the back. I hate this idea then you're the best. Because you're not. I'm the best. I'm the best in the world.
I'm the coward. Wait, let me tell you about a coward. Let me tell you about a guy who tells his WWE fans, the people that he loves, he will be back. He promises them. I promise you, I will be back in 1 year's time to claim this title. But you didn't, Daniel, did you?
RWT presents, for your listening pleasure, the RWT Promo Challenge.
Well, Mike, let me tell you something, brother. You don't deserve a chance with Emma. You couldn't handle an Australian woman. I don't know why I have an American accent while I'm doing this promo, but for some reason I decided I am Hulk Hogan. And as Hulk Hogan, I have decided that you cannot handle an Australian, which means you cannot handle me, you cannot handle Billy Kay, you cannot handle Peyton Royce, and you certainly cannot handle Emma.
That's what you got.
For some reason, I'm Hulk Hogan.
Oh man, I absolutely love it. Do you, when you in your career, do you ever get a chance to pick up the mic? Like, do you get a chance to cut promos and stuff like that?
Yeah, I do. Like, I don't know, it's obviously easier when you're connected to the story of what you're doing and what you're saying and everything like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, man. But because there's some people who are so good in the ring, but they the mic is not their thing, and then there's some people who they're great talkers, but they're not so good performing in the ring, And people find their way into their business from all different angles based on that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's all takes practice. Like we have promo class once a month here in PWA where I train, so we always make sure that we're not, as much as we focus on our in-ring skills, that we also are taking the time to focus on the out-of-ring skills that are equally as important.
So let's wrap up with this then, Shazza. First of all, Thank you so much for your time and for coming on the show. You can't imagine. This is super amazing for me because it's like, oh my God, I got to talk to Shazza Mckenzie. Where can people find you? What shows do you have coming up? Where on social media fans want to reach out to you? How do people connect with you?
Okay, so I'm going to be in America from the 5th of April till the 22nd. But this is going to come out after WrestleMania, I assume. So I've got a couple of WrestleMania weekend shows. So I've got Shimmer, I've got Progress, I've got one on Thursday that haven't been announced for yet. Got Rise 7 in Chicago on the 13th, I think is the date. And then there's the 14th and the 15th. That's the Saturday and the Sunday. Is Shimmer in Chicago. And then I've got IWA Mid-South on the 19th, Nova Pro on the 20th, and then Black Label Pro on the 21st. And then I'm back down in Australia with my first match back in Australia is Wrestling Go on the 28th of April. And then I have a whole bunch of other shows coming up throughout there. But those are my American dates for people. I imagine predominantly Americans are going to listen to this. So those are the dates that you can see me in America in April.
I don't even know how you have that all memorized. That's insane. And
I'm organized.
and social media, how can people contact you and follow you on social media?
I am at Shazza _Mckenzie is my Twitter and my Instagram. And then my Facebook is Shazza Mckenzie Pro Wrestler. Because I mucked up when I was trying to make it just Shazza Mckenzie, so I had to restart, and now it's Shazza Mckenzie Pro Wrestler. So that's me.
Shazza, thank you again so much for your time. It's invaluable, and it was fantastic to talk to you. My hope is that I get a chance to do it again in the future, because we would love to have you come back at some point.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. that was my interview with the great Shazza Mckenzie. And man, what a fantastic interview it was. She is insanely popular in Australia and the world around. And we're really hoping that she's able to get her living situation figured out, and that she lands right here in the U.S. where she can take part in more independent shows out here, and then hopefully one day we will be able to see her back in a WWE ring, because she is immensely talented. If you haven't seen any of her matches, go check them out. And if you are a fan of Shazza Mckenzie already, let other people know how awesome she is. So that is the show, guys. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure, again, you subscribe to the RWT YouTube channel, and go on Facebook, man, and type in RWT and join our wrestling group. We have some good stuff going on. Coming up here in a few weeks, I want to announce that we have an interview with Mickey Gall. And let me tell you something. If you don't know Mickey Gall, UFC fighter, he fought CM Punk in CM Punk's debut UFC match, and he beat him profusely. He really gave Punk a nice welcoming present to the UFC, and took that victory over CM Punk. And Mickey Gall, the fantastic soul that he is, has agreed to come on the RWT podcast and talk about WrestleMania. He was there this past Sunday at WrestleMania. It was his first time going to Mania, and so we're going to sit down and talk about what that experience was like for him, and perhaps get into a little bit of what it's like to be a UFC fighter, and the insanity that was him being CM Punk's first opponent in the UFC. So again, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss that interview or any of the other ones that we got coming up. And if you are a wrestling fan who wants to be interviewed right here on the RWT podcast, send us an email, man, at podcastrwt@gmail.com. And tell me some of your interesting wrestling stories, and we'll get you interviewed too. Because on this show, we interview industry professionals, but we also interview the everyday common fan. And that's what I am. I myself am an everyday common fan. And you have sat here long enough and listened to the sound of my voice. So I am going to let you go. Thank you so much, Shazza Mckenzie. We really appreciate you coming on the show. So, boys and girls, that's all I got for you today. Totally stole that from Moses Marquez. But anyways, I'm Emir Blackbane Costello, and I will catch you down the road.